She immediately said, shame can be a really good excuse, can't it? Shame didn't stop him from hurting me. It stopped him from seeing me.
All of my internal stuff, it's like, okay, I'm dirt. And she agrees with me, and that scares me. I can use that to shut you down, which is a pretty common tactic of mine.
It became treatment-endorsed trauma where the experts endorsed him to continue to traumatize me at home. So basically, you were saying, you're doing something wrong and showing me I've done something wrong, but I can show you you're doing something wrong in this moment, but when you do it to me, it's shaming.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Welcome to The Couple Cure. Here's Jay and Lori Pyatt.
Many experts say that shame is legitimate, but they rarely talk about how it can become an excuse. I used to think when Jay said he felt shame that it meant he felt bad, but what it really meant was he wasn't going to change. The way it worked out in our relationship was he basically said, you're shaming me, and that's where the conversation ended, but the damage continued. So I definitely want to address it today. There's also the element of, I had heard other people say, now you don't want to shame him, but the damage continued, the conversation stopped. To be clear, it's not like I was going to him saying, like, you're so bad for your addiction or you're so bad for your usage. I basically was just bringing him my pain.
Right.
So it really confused me for a decade and a half, thinking like, but I'm only trying to talk about it. And I'm hearing from Jay and other people. In fact, I didn't hear it from Jay a whole lot till he had heard these other people say, no, you don't want to shame him. Then he came home, immediately started saying, like, you're shaming me. And that, again, is where the conversation stopped. It definitely became an instance of treatment-endorsed trauma where the experts endorsed him to continue to traumatize me at home. It was during those years that I realized shame didn't stop him from hurting me. It stopped him from seeing me because I was just trying to say, this is my pain. Can you treat it with respect? Can you at least give it, a little bit of your attention? And he didn't, and therefore he didn't hear, like, these actions hurt me, and he continued to do those actions. Where is all this coming from? 2 or 3 videos ago, Jay basically said, in trying not to look like a monster, I became a monster.
Yeah, right.
And then it was like, okay, yeah, we are going to cover this topic. And around that time, I had seen somebody else talk about shame in a way I'd never heard it before. But to back up, one of the first supports I got was when a counselor said to me during one-on-one counseling, he says, you're shaming me. And she immediately said, shame can be a really good excuse, can't it? Or like, shame can be a really good place to hide, can't it? And I was like, oh, thank you for saying that, because that's exactly what I feel like is happening. So that was 20-something years ago. So this has been rolling around in my head since then. I saw a YouTube short that I didn't wholeheartedly agree with, but the more I prayed about it, the more I understood what the man was saying. Basically, what he was indicating was, you have shame thinking you're a bad person, but what if that shame itself makes you a bad person? And then he went on, because it's cowardice or because it's weakness. It takes you out of the role of being an active participant in your relationships. It takes you out of the role of being an active father or an active husband. So in order to talk about it, I've got 8 questions to kind of discuss how shame can impact a marriage and how shame did impact our marriage. So the first question is, did you ever realize it when legitimate shame stopped being remorse and started becoming an illegitimate excuse?
It became a response to you sharing your pain because I couldn't. At first, we had this discussion. I felt like you were rubbing my nose in it, quote unquote, which you weren't. The way I understood it was like, okay, you're telling me something that I did wrong, and I know I did wrong, but I don't know what to do with you telling me still I did something wrong. So it became well, that feels like shame, and I've been told that's something you shouldn't do. So I think you're shaming me became kind of just the response to it instead of being able to step past that and say, okay, I hear your pain and let me hear more and, connecting with it. I do have, that vague remembrance of just this feels like shame. So this feels like something I should shut down.
Jay had said, it felt like you were rubbing my nose in it. It just is now occurring to me. He didn't really have anybody, I think, who he hurt to that degree. And I don't know that he didn't have just a lot of people that just kind of let things go by and never really said, like, this hurt. I mean, am I?
No, you're not wrong.
Really?
Yeah.
So I'm talking to the addicts now. If that is your history where nobody really came back to you and said, hey, that hurt. It could be that her bringing her pain to you is new, and it does feel like she's rubbing your nose in it. But something to know is that in typical relationships in real life, that's how it's done. If somebody is hurting, they bring their pain to somebody to talk it out in order to reestablish the relationship. All right, not to say like you've done wrong. If they are, you will know it. You will absolutely know it because they'll say stuff like that you are so wrong for doing that and you're a bad person, elements to that degree versus like this really hurt. Why are you doing this? This is what it feels like. That's something completely different.
Yeah.
So now question 1.B is, do you remember ever consciously noticing, wow, when I say that, it shuts her down?
I mean, that's the reason why I would bring it up is, okay, you're shaming me, so you're doing something wrong in how you're approaching me, so I can use that to shut you down, which is a pretty common tactic of mine.
So basically you were saying, you're doing something wrong and showing me I've done something wrong, but I can show you you're doing something wrong in this moment, but when you do it to me, it's shaming.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's the finding a way out of having the spotlight on me to, well, you shouldn't ask questions like that because those shame me, and so that doesn't work, and leaving it at that.
Number 3, given what that YouTube short said, what if shame over thinking you're a bad person actually makes you a bad person because shame keeps you from being an active participant in your relationships? Well, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with that statement because that conversation that we had around the monster conversation was, if you really knew me, you would reject me. Having that as an internal belief that I can't be a good husband or I can't be a good father or I can't be a good whatever. If I begin to internalize that and agree with it, then yes, I step back saying, well, there's something so fundamentally flawed about me that I can't be a good husband that it takes me out of the game, and it does make me abdicate whatever that role is. And I went from a learning contributor to a non-contributor. In fact, and possibly an active destroyer of the situation.
That's the word I was going to think of. Now, I do kind of want to put a caveat there. I do believe there is legitimate shame, but I believe that legitimate shame is meant to spur us on to love and good works. It's meant to say, like, I never want to be that person again, so I need to change the things I'm doing.
Yeah, and just to echo that, it's one of those words that has a legitimate side and illegitimate, and it gets so misused. But yes, I agree with you. There's a point at which we have a deep regret of what we've done that makes us question, what the heck is wrong with me? And try to do something different. But when we turn that into being a victim or fundamentally flawed or my past leaves me in this place, then that is where it becomes something so illegitimate and unhelpful to you as a person, let alone to you and the people around you.
Okay, number 4. Did legitimate shame keep you from seeing the pain or the damage that you caused?
Legitimate shame? No. I mentioned it in one of these videos about being heartbroken of just, I can't believe I've done that. I can't believe what pain I've caused. And it's a really hard place to stay, kind of like grieving, right? It needs something where we can experience it and come back out of it, experience and come back out of it until we really like, okay, I've made peace with the fact without it being, oh, I'm just useless,
Yeah.
So,
Like kind of knowing that's not all you are,
right.
knowing you want to get better, knowing, you want more of your personality to be, or more of your actions to be things that you can really stand behind and feel good about.
Yeah.
Number 5, at what point did you see shame affect me more than it affected you?
There's not like a day or an instance, but looking back on it, that my anger would get so, I would get so angry over thinking that that's the only experience of me you have. And I began to try to no, you can't have that experience of me. You need to have other experiences of me, and trying to salvage my reputation. But it was in all of those kind of conversations that I know you paid for them. That shame in me affected you more than it affected me. But I don't know exactly when that started.
Question 5B, did you ever realize when other people said, you don't want to be shaming him, did you, what did you feel in those moments? Was it yeah?
No, it was because the way they would say that, or at least the context in which I understood them sharing that, was ask for change, but do it without shame. To try to drive him towards change. These are the things that hurt me, but do it without this, shaming sense. And this is one of those things you could have said it the most non-shaming way ever, but I responded in oh, that feels like shame, instead of, oh yeah, that's what that is I feel bad about what I did. You were trying to do exactly what they said. You wanted me to change without, oh, you're this or that. You didn't come at me that way. But in my head, all I felt or heard was the shame. And so it was more well, I want to change, but I don't want to do it with shame being the driver. And so it got screwed up in my head because I felt shame, and therefore you must be shaming me.
Oh.
That's the kind of lack of understanding of what all of that actually looks like.
I don't remember those people, because I remember specifically who first started saying that, and it was 2 people that backed each other up in it. Right. And after that, you're oh, you're shaming me, you're shaming me. I never heard anything else that they were saying.
Okay.
It was just you don't want, first thing out of the mouth, you don't want to be shaming them, and then not anything else about calling them higher or asking him to do anything differently.
Okay.
Number 6, knowing what you know now about your own internal processing back then, what would you say you were actually protecting when you said you felt ashamed?
If I believe this about me, if I believe I'm dirt, and you're saying, yeah, I believe that too, which is what I hear. It's wait, we both can't agree that that's true, because if we both agree that that's true, then it really is true. And that scared me, because when you're that hurt, when you're that angry, when there's that much breakdown between us, you're not communicating anything else. I'm hearing this hurts, this hurts, this hurts, this hurts. And in all of my internal stuff, it's okay, I'm dirt, I'm dirt, I'm dirt, I'm dirt, I'm dirt. And she agrees with me, and that scares me. Oh no, that's really true. And so it begins this a part of me wants to push back and say, no, that can't be all that's true, or that can't be true at all, which was how it definitely came out of me.
New question, so this will be 6B. Instead of thinking you're dirt, what would have been a healthier thing for you to think about yourself?
That I've done some very dirty things.
I asked you that question and you talked about actions. What about you, your soul, your person?
Yeah,
what could you have believed about that would have been healthier?
This is something that I definitely work with guys on, is a sense of intrinsic value. That not that you were doing this, but that I was saying, well, if she says it and I already believe it, then I must not have any value. Instead of saying, wait a minute, I have an intrinsic value that was given to me by Christ or the universe. The fact that I exist as a human being gives me intrinsic value. I've done some things that are very bad. I still have value. That doesn't erase that, but it certainly makes me a hard person to be around.
And I think if he had believed that about himself, I would have had to been like, you are a bad person, for him to doubt that,
Right.
to doubt that about himself. I think had he thought the truth about himself, I think I could have said, like, this hurts me. And he would have said, okay, this is about my behavior, not about my person. So that can be kind of a litmus test. If you can go, hold on a second, like, can I get you to agree that this is not everything about me? I don't believe it's everything about me. So I don't even need to, and maybe that's the litmus test, that you don't go to a deep level of shame about you as a person. Because you're like, no, I know this is not everything about me.
Yeah.
Okay, number 7. Did you ever see that shame is actually necessary to motivate people to become the people they were really meant to be, or they really want to be? Like, I know for a long time, it was like, shame is bad, so we need to stay very, very far away from it.
Right. I believe there's a place where we have to come face to face with and own the terrible stuff we've done to really change. Because when we won't own it, we're still living in denial. We're living in a self-deception of, I didn't really do anything wrong, versus, holy smokes, did I do a lot of stuff wrong, a lot of damaging things, and I need to be different as a result of that. Whether that's shame or remorse or some word that I don't have the vocabulary for, I think for addicts, we have to come to that place. That's step 4 and 5. Looking at, what did I do? What are the things I've done? And then telling another human being about it.
And then 8 is making repair or amends.
8 and 9 are making amends for those.
Kind of as a side note, it just is occurring to me, had I gone to maybe those same people or certain people in the church and said, I feel like Jay's shaming me, I think they would have said, Lori, you have to know you have intrinsic value, not go to him and go, Jay, now you shouldn't be shaming her. With the guys, it's almost like we need to give him a pass, and everybody around him needs to stop doing the very thing that God is saying to do, depending on the issue. Number 8, what do you think wives misunderstand about this side of an addict's shame?
Explain, what do you mean by this side?
That it can be a really good escape route.
Oh, I would say out of the hundreds of men I've spoke to, it is very common for them to already have a difficult time believing they have value from whatever happened in their past, whatever other excuses they've already built for themselves, that they're struggling in this area to begin with. What they do need to hear is, yes, I've done something hurtful to you, and I can get better. The other conversation they haven't had is, you can get better at this. Men need other men in their lives who step into this situation, who can speak to them in that way. And that's one of the things that I do with them. Not to blow smoke and, oh, you're the great guy. It's like, you have value and you screwed up. Those, they don't erase one another.
Yeah, they can coexist.
Yeah.
I would tell the wives, kind of as a practical note, the way I shut down that he was using was, our conversations would devolve into him being hard on himself. And I'm like, if you can say you're shaming me when you're kind of indicating similar things, that's a double standard.
Right.
And then I went to, like, and the experts say that shame and guilt can be interchangeable. So I'm going to follow what the experts saying. What they're saying is, shame is kind of needed to get better. And when have I ever said you were a bad person? One of the things I had to constantly do was, okay, Jay, I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying I'm going to help you toward your goal of wanting us to have a better relationship, and that means we have to talk about my pain. There are some things I really need you to hear there. Now, if you don't want to have to jump through all those hoops, sidestep the whole thing by talking about legitimate guilt and intrinsic value. You don't have to fix your husband. You're allowed to have your pain. I'm speaking to the women who want to take actions to try to get past this conversation stopper.
Yeah.
So the questions for the betrayed wives are, have you ever been told you were shaming him, quote unquote, for bringing up your pain or for bringing up the truth? And if so, what was the long-term impact? A little more challenging for the betrayed wives. Does his shame look like the start of brokenness? Like, to me, that would say it's legitimate. Or does it look like defensiveness? To the addicts, what did shame prevent you from saying in your relationship? And a very challenging question for the addicts is, what do you fear more, looking bad or hurting your wife? So we will see you in the next one, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.